Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. Another Inside the Birds. Like we mentioned in our last podcast, Adam, we're off schedule a little bit. We've already done our tape review, although we've got some leftover notes that we want to empty the notebook with about the Eagles lost to Tampa Bay, got some transactions, and of course, we're going to kind of call this the quarter poll review of the Eagles, because it's not gonna, it's 17 games now, 6 in. Yeah. That seems like quarter, third, whatever you want to call it. But
quarter plus, we're called the quarter plus poll. Yep.
Yeah, there you go, the quarter plus poll. So we'll get into some things like that. We had a little bit of a scheduling, difference this week. We were on the Fanatic on Tuesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. So it was a great show, I thought, because obviously Tuesday was the day that Sixers Twitter blew up and Sixers news blew up with Ben Simmons getting thrown out of practice. And you and I came on at 6 o'clock and it's like, well, we can't just go straight to Eagles here with all of this Ben Simmons stuff so prevalent. So we found a really nice way to kind of fuse what was going on with Ben into what it's like covering the Eagles and some of their drama and going back to TO. And we found similarities there. And so it was a great show. If you missed it, it's podcasted on the 97.5 Fanatic website. I believe you go to evening shows, right, Adam? And then they usually split it up in hour one and hour two. I know they did that last year.
Actually, I think they actually do it all together.
Oh, cool.
And this one, and then we'll be back on Monday because the reason why we did Tuesday is because the Sixers and Flyers conflicts. They had a Flyers game on Monday. It was a Monday. Sixers or Flyers played Monday. I don't remember which team.
Yeah, the Kraken. Is it Kraken or Kraken, the Seattle team?
Oh, the Kraken. Yeah, and Dave Axtell's the coach.
Right? Yeah.
Kraken. Yeah. Cool name, huh?
I guess so. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, yeah, the Flyers won that game that night. So that was good. Obviously, we'll have our Eagles. I want to repeat for fans of our pregame show, those who tune in. Our time is going to be 10 a.m. till noon. We know it's a 4 o'clock game. We don't want to interrupt your 1 o'clock football viewing, though, for other teams. So we're going to be 10 a.m. to noon as normal. So make sure you catch us. Greg Cosell will be back. Adam and I have spoken to Greg in the last few days, and he's got some notes that he can't wait to share. Because remember, Brian Baldinger filled in for him last game. And so Greg's got 2 weeks of notes that he wants to unload on the pregame show. So it's going to be a good one. So make sure you're tuning in 10 a.m. Inside the Birds Facebook platform. It's also on Twitter. I'm sorry, YouTube platform is what I meant to say. It's also on YouTube. Twitter. It might be on Facebook too. At this point, it's on all of our social media. Yeah. So, and then let's see. Anything else we wanted to get through? Oh, your Twitch show is on Thursday now, right?
Yeah, I'm back on, right, because we were doing our pregame show last Thursday. So very quickly here, you could actually watch the Broncos-Browns game with me live with Twitch's deal with the NFL. So what happens is I give commentary. Now, I talk about all 32 teams, not just one particular team, but we'll obviously covering that game. But we had a lot of Eagle fans show up. It was actually really cool. In fact, one of the guys said that it felt like the Manning show, where they're just.
I was just about to say, is it the Caplan cast? Is that what we call it?
It's really cool. But here's the funny thing. Yeah, my voice would crack. No, what was funny is they didn't tell me not to talk over the commercials until like halftime. I didn't know, so like an idiot, I was talking over the commercial, so I have to be quiet once the commercial starts. So and the guys, we're good, and here we go. We're, I just know to shut up. It's actually really funny. It was so cool. Very few technical glitches. The first game we did was the Rams, a Seahawk game when Russell Wilson hurt his middle finger, right. But it was wonderful. We had a nice little crowd there, and they're going to do more promotion for it. So it's free. You can watch along with me. It's really super cool.
What's the name of your YouTube? What's the name of your Twitch channel?
Thanks. Yeah, it's the Adam Caplan Show on Twitch.
So
just search and subscribe, and it's free. It's wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and thanks to my friends at Twitch for doing this. They reeled me in and some other people, and I'm like, this is new technology. Hey, it's owned by Amazon. It's got to be great.
There you go. Of course, it's got to be great, right? Make sure you're checking out InsideTheBirds.com. Adam's most recent NFL power rankings are up, and you can see who's in first, second, third. You can see where the Eagles are. So this has been a weekly treat from Adam for the last few weeks.
Yeah, the Eagles are way down the list.
Yeah, definitely. And do us a favor, help us out. We haven't talked about this in a while, but it's very, very beneficial for us. So we appreciate it if you go to Apple, if you're an Apple listener, and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us out a lot, and we need as many as we can get. So if you love Inside the Birds, please head over to Apple. Just give us a quick 5-star review. Leave a few nice, kind words. Ask a question, and we'll see it, and we'll answer your question on the podcast. So please do that.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we need to get back to answering the questions. I love those, man.
I think we'll probably do an Ask ITB pretty soon anyway. We're due for one.
Good one.
Absolutely. Good one. All right, let's get into some of the transactions over the last 24 to 48 hours. First, we want you to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and you win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win using promo code ITB this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. So obviously the biggest transaction, if you want to call it that, is Lane Johnson is back at him. He announced that he's coming back to the team. I assume he will. Well, I shouldn't assume, but I imagine he'll be back at practice this week. If you announce that you're back, I imagine he'll be back. Yeah. And then, of course, Jordan Mailata should probably go back to left tackle. And Andre Dillard, I would think, goes back to the bench.
Yeah, look, the interesting thing about this, we really didn't talk about this before, we should have, is that he was still on the 53-man roster. They did not put him on the reserve list, though he wasn't practicing. I thought for sure that because he's not, they knew he was not going to play. Mm-hmm. Well, why not use that roster spot? Put him in reserve when he thinks he's ready mentally and physically to play. Put him back on the roster, but they didn't do that. I don't know why they didn't use that extra roster spot. I know it only for a couple of weeks, but geez, I don't know. But nevertheless, you're right. He's back. He's ready to go. And then Sua Peta, you mentioned on the last show, he was on the COVID list for nearly 2 weeks, but he's now back on the roster. Mm-hmm. That one was you're always worried about with COVID that sometimes these could be long term. And as we speak here, Wednesday morning, Dallas Goedert is still on the reserve COVID list.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's, like you said, Wednesday morning hasn't happened yet. They're just going to start to reconvene for practice, so we'll have to see. But with the Zach Ertz trade and with Tyree Jackson, still on IR, but also not even ready to play an NFL game yet. I mean, we're talking about Jack Stoll and the recently acquired Noah Togiai as potentially your only two starting tight end, or no, I'm sorry, your only two rostered tight ends, right. Unless is there a guy in the practice squad that I'm missing?
Actually, yeah. Stoll, right now, Togiai is on the practice squad. He's not on the 53. So technically, to see, here's what happened. The Eagles were smart. Mm-hmm. They learned their lesson. They protected him so someone can't sign him off there. Right. So obviously he's going to be added on Saturday. Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, said last Friday in his media briefing that Tyree Jackson's going to be back, soon, relatively soon. He didn't say what week. But as you said, he's got to practice first. Mm-hmm. This guy didn't have a preseason. He had a great training camp, and it was a great story, but they still don't know about him. Right. And Richard Rodgers, oh, by the way, he was cut by the Cardinals when Zach Ertz was
traded for Zach Ertz. It's like the 6 degrees of Zach Ertz here. So, yeah, I would imagine if Wednesday's practice happens and Dallas Goedert is not cleared or there and he's still on the COVID list, then maybe you'll hear about a transaction involving Richard Rodgers sooner than later. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. The Eagles also signed a wide receiver, Deon Cain, to the practice squad. They once again released linebacker Christian Ellis. So now I'm starting to wonder if they're doing the practice squad tango thing here with Christian Ellis.
With Ellis.
This is,
yeah,
the third time that he's been on the practice squad here.
Wow. It might be. They obviously like him enough to keep bringing back. But let me give you a little intel on Deon Cain. So Deon Cain was out of Clemson, and he was the star of their OTAs. He was a 6th-round pick of the Colts in 2018. Obviously, Sirianni knows him. That's why he's here. Billy. He was phenomenal. Talking to the Colts about him at the time and afterwards, he looked like they were personnel people know, Geoff. Sometimes their eyes fool them, but they were, to a man, everyone who was with them then in 18 was convinced this kid's going to be special. No one could cover him. Ran really good routes. He's a guy just under 6'2", might be 6'1 3/4. Mm-hmm. They knew they were going to get it right. They were so convinced. tears his ACL in training camp, never the same. Cut, I think he only spent 2 years with them, then was with the Steelers, has like maybe 12 catches as an NFL player. It's never been the same. Such a shame. And look, he's in the practice squad. The Eagles sometimes are very patient with guys that they feel they have a chance. And you look at all these undrafted guys they've been right about, Suopeta and others they've had in the practice squad on and off the roster, so forth. So, you know what? Take a shot here with Deion Kane. It's a really good move by them because they have nothing to lose. And the head coach and Patullo coach receivers at one point for the Colts obviously knows them. So let's see what happens. And as we know, the Eagles can use some size and physicality at the receiver position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if this is just simply a guy they're familiar with and have a chance to develop, as you're saying, or are they a stickler on having 3 wide receivers on the practice squad because they already have Travis Hightower, they already have Sean Johnson, so and then they had Travis Fulgham, who they released about a week ago. So I don't know if this is a guy. You're right, it's a guy that they're familiar with, but I wonder if they would have signed a wide receiver even if Kane was not available. That we'll never know.
That's a good question.
They've had 3 all year long.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yep. So their practice squad projections were the aforementioned John Hightower, Togiai, obviously. The Raven Clark, Bo, the Eagles, as I understand it, really see him as a tackle, not a guard, though he can play it. Sirianni knows this because he did play some guard for the Colts, but he's so long. Greg Cosell was talking about him a couple shows ago on our pregame show about what he'd saw from his college tape. I mean, he's got super long arms. He's like 6'5", he's 35.5-inch arms. And then Elijah Riley, every week, they really like this Elijah Riley. They're not letting anyone get him.
Yeah, well, again, safety is not a position that they're very deep at, and they've got a lot of veterans, one coming off his second surgery, so you can understand that. I wonder if because John Hightower is someone they've protected quite a bit this year. I wonder if there's going to be a time where we see John Hightower on the 53. I mean, you're not getting a whole lot from your 4 and 5 receivers right now, Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And again, I wouldn't even suggest this if they hadn't keep protecting John Hightower. So it's not like they've elevated him because they've had enough guys for a roster for 5. But I just wonder if at some point, if they feel like you got to play a young, promising upside player, they've coached him here for a few weeks since doing the 53, and maybe that there's something that with all these protections that they see him getting better and he can give you something there. I have no inside knowledge, just kind of speculating based on the situation here.
Sure, because they keep protecting him. They obviously think he's either maturing a little bit or they like his practice habits. And also with Hightower, because he's fast, he on the look team, he could handle that if there's a receiver they're trying to emulate, because for a scout team, you're okay. We want you to be this guy and wear the jersey of that receiver on the other team. It could be that.
He better be Henry Ruggs this week, right?
Yeah, and he could fly. Right, exactly. Oh, boy. No doubt about it. 10th overall pick 2 years ago. We'll talk about the Raiders on for Friday's show, but Ruggs is starting to come on. No, it's a really good point, man. But Deion Kane, man, it's such a shame. The chances are it's not going to work out because the Steelers gave up on him. The Colts never had great depth at receiver. He was also with Baltimore. He was hurt in training camp. So you just hope. He's now 25 years old. You hope that that somehow, some way, Eagles think enough of him that they could bring him to their offseason program next year and maybe develop him. Who knows?
We will see. All right, that's it for transactions. We can move into our quarter season review and discuss what we've learned about the Eagles up until this point. First, you've heard us been talking about our friends at BetQL. You need them if you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook. It's the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They've got this best bets computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, along with the reason why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads to over-unders and player props. And if you don't want to use the model, if you're a researcher who likes to get down there and break it down yourself, that's fine. BetQL has the necessary tools for your research needs. Everything from sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboards to track your success. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/ITB. Enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout, and you get 25% off their subscription offerings. And you can also check out their sportsbook offer page. If you live in one of the eligible states, you can claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. So don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season with our friends at BetQL. All right, Adam, let's move into the offense. It's a really popular topic to talk about today.
Oh, yeah. It dominated our show
at all of the last 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been, we certainly got a lot of calls about it.
Right, our show on the Fanatic, man. It was. By the way, it's probably our favorite show in the 2 years we've been with the Fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
It was so great, and we did some nostalgia. Somehow, when you talk about a quarterback, all sorts of stuff comes up. And Randall Cunningham's name came up. Jaws, of course. Nick Foles in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Randall Cunningham. McNabb came up. It was just phenomenal.
DeMarcus Russell.
How you came up with that? Boy, you have a good memory. And the calls were phenomenal.
Yeah, it was
really
fun.
Smart takes. And look, there were calls against Hurts, for Hurts, but people were reasonable with their takes. They weren't like crazy with, you were talking about on our show that dropped Monday. Monday,
mm-hmm.
how it got out of control with the over the top stuff with the opinions. And look, fans are fanatic. They're fanatical. I get it.
Yeah,
but
no,
I agree.
It's
a great show.
Good.
It was a great show.
It was level-headed. I'd said something where you're starting to hear and see like really angry people and starting to contradict them. Like you'll hear someone call in and say, not to our show, just any show, and they'll say like, give Jalen Hurts some time. It's not fair to judge him after this few games. Which is a fine thing to say. But then they'll be like, but this Nick Sirianni guy, he's terrible. He's got to go. His play calling sucks. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you're only giving one guy a few games, but you're not giving the other guy who's just new to the job also a few games, and you're not being fair about it. You almost you like your guy more, and you're going to attack the other guy. So, but I agree. I thought the calls we got were very balanced, and obviously people are frustrated, Adam. People are frustrated with the offense's one-dimensionality to it, and then of course I think people were really frustrated the last 2 weeks with Jalen missing some open guys, either with his throws or just not seeing who's open, which is probably the biggest thing that he needs to show improvement on over the next 5, 6, however many weeks is really, staying in that pocket, making that right read, and not leaving too early, and keeping your eyes up the field is important too.
All right, so let me add stuff from our previous show from the Bucs game. I have more tape stuff that I was given from some good sources around the league. So the footwork his lower body mechanics are just not good enough. We did talk about it on the previous show, but I just want to go a little bit more on his base. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm not going to stand up and do this, but I'm just going to show you because he's a right-handed thrower. You got to get your feet on the ground and have a good base and good balance. He's not rotating his hips well enough. He's not the timing with everything. You were talking about this in the spring, how they wanted to work on his release because he's got an over the top release. They want to shorten up. It's more of a wind up, which is hard to do. That's if he's a quarterback here next year. That's an off season. That's a complete rebuild of that. That's not going to be easy. You want to shorten it up. He tries to, but it's certainly an issue. Here's something that's new that I got. You mentioned the eyes. We're not talking about the maintaining his downfield focus. He needs to look off safeties better. This is an issue with progression reading where one of the things is once you grow in the game or as a young quarterback, you'll start understanding. Yeah, some stuff schemed up. Like they'll run the receiver, this receiver here at the safety to open up, so that way it opens up the other lane for the receiver to run through. But he also needs to do a better job, I was told, looking off safeties. That's part of holding a safety. Is you look here, you make him think you're going there, but you're going here. That kind of stuff.
Sure.
And also the timing must be better. Doesn't have that timing. I've mentioned timing was phenomenal against the Cardinals last year, where he brought the team back and the defense obviously collapsed. That he's not really had that, although he had it in the Chiefs game. the Atlanta game, it was created for him by the scheme, by the scheme they put in for that week just to get out of his hands, and he did a really good job of that. But that's more college timing. We saw some NFL timing in the Chiefs game, though it's still college offense. It seems like everybody says that now. It's not just us, and no one's disagreeing. Baldy was all over it with Avant last week on our show. So I understand this is, he's in his 10th start. I get it. We need to see some of this improve. This is a review show with intel from our sources around the league. What do we want to see going forward? Because we've told you all along what we thought needed to happen. It's now, let's summarize it and see what people are saying going forward here, what needs to happen. This needs to sum it up. This needs to happen in terms of the things he can do a better job with.
Yeah, can't disagree. Your sources, they know more about quarterbacking than I do. So I'm gonna get with that. I think some of the things we've heard before and pointed out as far as the mechanics and the timing. I think if you look at those deep balls that he threw that were underthrown, if he gets the ball, he doesn't need any more arm on it. If he just gets the ball out of his hand first, that's the timing part of it, then it's a connection. But in order to do that, you have to feel that kind of natural comfort to throw when a guy isn't already 3 steps open. And that's a big thing for a lot of quarterbacks, just the comfort to be able to rip it. That's something Russell Wilson does really well. Russell Wilson doesn't have Russell Wilson can throw the ball 50, 60 yards. He doesn't have a strong arm compared to Josh Allen, but he has such great timing that you'll notice when he throws those looping high, very catchable fade balls that Tyler Lockett always seems to come down with. So
the rainbows. Oh
yeah,
my
he
God.
throws rainbow. Yeah. He throws looping.
Right.
And Phillip Rivers did too. Phillip Rivers was a window thrower.
Yes. Yeah, he had the shot put. But he had juice on it, though. The throw in that Arizona game, which was so great last year with the timing, I think it was to Jeffrey on the right sideline, down the right rail. I can't remember exact. I thought it was Jeffrey. It could have been Watkins.
I remember one of his first deep balls at him was the 55-yarder to Rager on the left side against the Packers, where he threw it right off the line of scrimmage.
But this game was by far the Arizona game that he was so good in that game with timing. Even Cosell, who could be tough on quarterbacks, said he threw it a sense of time for the first time in his career as a young quarterback last year. And he's not really gotten back to that timing. I can't answer that. I don't know why. I need to either go through myself their coaching tape or ask someone who would know. Why did it work so well? But it stuck in my mind how well he threw the ball in that game with some timing, because he never really did that much in college because of the offense that he played in. And Doug Peterson, they did some RPOs, but they did some stuff with him under center last year. So I'm trying to get a clear picture of what he was doing, because that was a good, solid NFL quarterback game for a young guy.
Right. Speaking of under center, as we shift toward running backs, certainly we all agree they can be used more. Miles Sanders can be used more. It will be nice to see a little downhill style under center. People think that there's something wrong with Miles. I don't think so. I think he's just getting lost in an offensive scheme that just hasn't worked very well. I don't see when he's running the ball that there's anything wrong with him, or his vision's not great, or his speed isn't there. Do you?
No, it's weird. It's to the point with Sanders' usage and you were just talking about, there's nothing wrong with him. He looks really good. He looks fine. I just don't. No one seems to have an answer. We were talking a little bit about this on the last show. But here's the thing, and Gainwell's thrown into this as well. There are certain things they could do with both of these guys outside in the passing game. We talked about lining Gainwell up, I don't know how many times at the exposition, because he did this at Memphis. They haven't done it at all. Actually, they did it. They might have done it in the Atlanta-San Francisco game. I know they line him up out wide, but I don't know if it's truly the exposition. But these coaches say they don't use X and Z and Y. It's like inside and out receivers, whatever. But you need to use him more. And Sanders did it in that. If you recall the Minnesota game in 2019, Miles Sanders' first year, he caught the Sluggo seam pass. It was like 40 yards here and there. And then the deep sideline pass way downfield. So we know he can do it. Why aren't they doing it?
Yeah, can't answer that one. I think that's pretty much perplexed every reputable source that we've spoken with on what's going on there. Nobody gets
fans.
it.
We'll watch. It's ridiculous. Come on, man. This is on I don't want to hear this is not Hurts' issue. This is a coaching issue. Show confidence in the guy. Let him run these plays, and if he doesn't do it, then it's on the quarterback. But come on,
I agree. It's been a terrible job by the coaches to get these running backs involved. I am totally.
And they talked about it. Sirianni. Geoff, remember what Sirianni said at training camp? Oh, it's not a secret. He was joking with. He's like, not breaking news here, guys. We're going to use the running backs in the passing game. Oh, really?
Yeah. When?
What's happened lately? He wasn't somewhat early. I don't know, man. I think coaches
there's a lot
get
to
their own
learn
way.
here. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, look, this is a worst case scenario, right? But it's got to be something people are thinking about. It doesn't have to be like the quarterback is more faulty than the coach, or the coach is more. They both may not be doing great jobs, and I think that
that's fair.
And even for the long term, both of them may not be long for what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know. We'll see. We will see.
I just don't understand the lack of creativity. You and I have talked about this. We talked about it in the last show. Hurts missed a bunch of throws he should have made.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about 20 passes here. It might be 7 or 8. And it's not. I'm not excusing it. He's got to be better. It's just simply has really dropped off the last 2 games. But you don't as a play caller. Oh, well, he's struggling, so I'm not gonna do what I want to do to start the season. No, that's ridiculous. You run your offense like you run it. Don't let what you perceive to be the kind of quarterback he has to be for you to run your offense.
Right.
I'm just telling you, I don't know. I don't know Nick Sirianni, but based on what we're told about what our sources around the league are seeing, they're just like, this has got to be a college offense. It's the only way he could function. I don't buy that.
With you 100%. The receivers, sometimes they get lost in our conversation.
I'm sorry,
right?
I'm fired up.
No, you should be. Sometimes the receivers get lost in our conversation because it's always about the quarterbacks and about the play calling and vice versa. But there's times they do things well. Devontae Smith has clearly shown that he is as good of a route runner as you're going to see, especially from a rookie in this league. Then there's the other guys, whether it's Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins, and they're here, then they disappear, and there's really been no consistency. I think the hope is that Dallas Goedert gets healthy here and gets into the offense and really starts to command more targets.
He better get the ball.
He needs to. But again, the middle of the field has been an area where Jalen has just not felt comfortable throwing the ball. So we've got to see if Dallas Goedert can make him more comfortable, if he feels more comfortable ripping it to a big guy like that.
Well, okay. So that's my next point here. You set me up, and you and I really well here because I know you have some information on this. There have definitely been inbreakers. He's not pulling the trigger. This is what I was talking about in the last show, which happened in the Tampa Bay game. This is the first time that I was told it was really bad in the Tampa Bay game. Look, it had not been. There were spotty times when he should have thrown the ball in the intermediate area on curls, but this game was bad. In that, again, NFL Open is different than College Open. NFL Open might just be a leveraged shoulder. You see the guy running inside. Don't worry about if the corner's right on his back. Throw him the football. It's a timing throw. It's on the receiver and he doesn't get it.
Right.
That's the problem that people around the league see when they see Philly's tape. They're like, man, this kid's just not seeing it. Doesn't get it.
Right.
I know we know he's being coached to do it. I'm sure he's obviously told to do this.
Yeah.
He's just got to pull the trigger.
And I think with the receivers, it's fair to say they got to play a little more physical. Like, for example, in the first half, the Buccaneers played a lot of 2 deep, but man underneath. So, 2-man, 2 safeties are keeping everything in front of them, but they're allowing the underneath coverage to be physical. And that's where you have to do a good job of getting off that press and getting open in a short area. And that's where twitchy guys like Devontae and Jalen Reagor really should get open more, but there were times that they struggled. Now, also, a lot of times we're talking third down here, and so the defense kind of knows what's coming. When you're one-dimensional, you're giving a little tip-off to the defense anyway, but I feel like those 2 guys got to fight a little bit harder to get open in those short area situations and get the balls. Yeah, fight through contact. Yeah. Great.
Reagor, yeah. I'm sorry?
I just said great terminology. That's exactly what they need to do.
Yeah, so Reagor, who's built really well, he needs to win. Like, he needs to win consistently. He's got it in him. He did this in college. He wasn't running a 9 route all the time. He ran in breakers. Hurts has got to get it to Rager. He's got to do that. Quez Watkins. Okay, another question. Here's a question for you. We know he runs a really pretty good, damn good 9 route. Okay, we know that he's explosive as hell. He does run occasionally an inbreaker. What kind of role should you have? We're heading now to week 7 against the Raiders.
Well, I was hoping you would have a vertical slot role, Adam. You know that.
Well, they line him up in the slot a lot. But it doesn't have to be. Can he just run a stop route? Like, I don't know. I just feel like he needs to get the ball more because he's running. I want to see him run after catch. I know what you're getting at. As a vertical slot, you could get him going forward, and boy, he's off to the races, right?
Yep.
Right, and I love to see.
Plus,
that.
use his speed to clear safeties and bring those crossing route and shallower routes open for Devontae and for Jalen. I mean, it's been established now that Quez Watkins can beat teams over the top. So I would try to use him as a vertical slot like you used Nelson Aguilar. Throw it to him on the scramble play when play break down and you see him deep. He's good at that. He seems to be good at coming back for the ball. I think he caught one against Tampa in that way where Jalen left the pocket and he came back for it. So there's a role, but it's hard to really look the way the offense has been so scattered. It's hard to even know who's supposed to be getting targeted how many times. They're just out there trying to put something together for the last 2 weeks that's even functional. So we'll see. Offensive line's been good. I mean, look, it's been a patchwork offensive line, but I think the protection has not been bad at all. There are, Q&A did a good job of mentioning this, and it'll be out on Thursday morning, 6 a.m. But when they do give up ground, it'll be a little bit. They noticed that they felt Jalen was leaving the pocket as soon as the offensive line got pushed back a little bit. But sometimes what you'll see is an offensive line might give up ground off the initial snap or the initial burst, but then punch back and reset the line a little bit there or give the quarterback enough time to throw. So you have to, as long as you're not getting imploded right from the snap. They have not been imploded right from the snap, but consistently.
Well, in Tampa, they did get blown up a little bit. I would say they had some small issues in that game with Vita Vea. They had a decent amount of quarterback pressures or just breaks where they moved the Eagles' offensive line a little bit. Wasn't their best game, wasn't the worst game. I thought they were better than average from what I'm told. But you're right, though. Overall, through 6 games, they were pretty solid. Through all the, it's funny, last year that they had like the worst injury situation on offensive line we probably have ever seen. Right up there. Yeah. This year it's been obviously they've missed a lot of guys, but they're holding up. They're hanging in there. They're not doing bad. Look, thank goodness for their sake that Mailata's injury wasn't serious, grade 1 MCL, so he missed a couple games. He came back. Dillard's been I don't want to say a revelation, but he's been a nice surprise as a pass protector. Still really good at it. We don't know about a run blocker because the Eagles simply have not run the ball. I believe, they're still lowest rush attempts by running backs by far in the National Football League. I didn't expect this. I'll be honest with you. I was way wrong. I'd never even considered that a guy who worked for Frank Reich, Nick Sirianni, would abandon the run game. It's like it doesn't even exist. It's like, is Miles Sanders still in this football team?
It's a good question. There's definitely an MIA out for Miles Sanders. Where has he been? I know. Think about it. The Eagles are 15th in the NFL in rushing at 113.7, but take away the scramble yards, and it's going to probably be a whole lot lower. I mean, if you're like you just said, running back yardage has got to be really, really low for this team.
I mean, here's another thing. Someone asked me this on Twitter. I meant to address it last week, so it was a couple weeks ago. I get Boston Scott's not a part of it. That for whatever reason, despite how good he looked in the preseason, or actually training camp, excuse me, off season we heard he wasn't great, and then the training camp he's pretty good. What did he do not to be a part? Like, this is another issue with Sirianni I have. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this a Sirianni show. We've criticized Hurts, folks. For those of you who've taken shots at Hurts, we've addressed it. We're trying to be fair, but you can't tell me that Boston Scott is not talented enough to be. Could you get him some time? Like, what is? Help me out here.
He's collecting dust right now. I mean, he's not even returning kicks. It's almost like, well, why is he on the roster? Right?
Thank you. That's it.
What is he occupying a roster spot for? And is Huntley still on the practice squad? Do they still have Jason or Justin?
I forgot about him. What happened to him?
I don't know. I think he's still on the practice squad. Is he not?
Is he still there? He is. Yes,
if he's still there.
I forgot about him.
Then what do you need?
Jordan Howard.
Both of these guys for?
I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Well, no, Huntley. Okay, he was a change up. He never. We knew he had no chance because he doesn't. They have that guy in Gainwell. Jordan Howard. Okay. I guess if something happened to Sanders, he couldn't play. He'd be on the roster, right?
This team has 5 running backs, and they use half of them. I don't know.
Why don't they even have it? I mean, I know we're being facetious here, but they don't even use them. Like what?
I know, it's crazy.
Anyway.
All right, let's transition to the defense. First, we'll tell you to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you check them out right now at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. And we'll pause real quick for a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you do stop by at Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. Don't tell them Ben Simmons sent you. You'll probably get kicked out of the place.
By the way, Steve Nelson of the Eagles has his, he got his one of his cars there. Just got one there. Wentz also had a very good deal with them, and they've Sheldon Brown. You go back for decades, man. Sheldon Brown was one of the first Eagle customers, and Devontae Maddox, Dallas Goedert. The list goes on.
Quentin Michael said he knows Brett Shoulder, so I mean, he's in the Eagles family there.
Choice of the Eagles players, man. Very cool.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about Jonathan Gannon's defense and his just overall philosophy, because you've seen some changes lately. You've seen them be a little bit more aggressive, a little more deceptive ever since Rodney McLeod came back. I think that's given him.
This is good, Dime. By the way.
Yeah, you've seen Dime after the whole we don't really have a dime package. Well, Rodney came back, and now they have a dime, but there's still some more I feel like they can do, right? I mean, don't you feel like you watched that first quarter against Tampa Bay, and it was just like, here, Tampa, just take. Just whatever you want to get.
That was embarrassing. I got to tell you, I couldn't tell watching the game on TV. I watched the all 22 or Sunday or Monday, whenever they put it up. And I had heard.
I can't figure that thing out.
Okay, it's a little bit. It's not as good as it used to be on NFL.com, unfortunately. But hey, it's all they have. It's all we have if we want to watch it. So anyway, I had heard that they were actually on another island, the safeties, on the first 2 series. I'm telling you, they gave up 40 yards of space on those. It's embarrassing. Like, what has happened? Like, here's the thing. Like, you and I had heard when they hired this Jonathan Gannon, how smart he was, and he's going to be innovative. And okay, we were told they're going to play zone. Okay, fine, they're doing that. We're not seeing the matchups that we've seen a little bit of pattern matching, not as much as we thought we would see. They play more zone than anybody. This is impossible to find. I don't think we could find this out, but I'm going to check with some people around the league and see if they have the stat. I know they don't do very much post-snap disguise at all. They've done a little bit more than they were earlier in the season where they weren't doing any of it. Well, week 1 they did against Atlanta, and they stopped doing it, and then they were doing it occasionally, but not very much.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 series, like, what was the plan here? Like, why would you do that against Tom Brady? Why would you think that would work? You don't think him and AB are going to work the intermediate, where AB is better than anyone in NFL history to work the intermediate as a receiver? It's unbelievable. At 34 years old.
I think, and Jonathan Gannon sort of confirmed it in his press conference, I think that they felt that Tampa Bay would lean a little heavier on the run than normal, and that any time that Tom Brady put the ball in the hands of a running back, that was a win for the Eagles. The problem was Leonard Fournette averaged, 4 yards a carry or something? He had 80 yards on 20 carries. I forget what the...
Well, it would have been way higher than that, other than the short yards carries took him under. I think it might have been 3.9, but, he had a bunch of short yards.
Right, yeah. He had the goal line carries but, I mean, anybody who watched Leonard Fournette looked like he was like Adrian Peters. I mean, he was running very hard. He was running over guys. I mean...
Dragging guys, man. He was dragging... Number 7 wearing an odd number, but I think it was number 7. But anyway,
strange.
He was dragging guys, taking guys for a ride, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he had a 20-yard run So he ran effectively against them. And Ronald Jones even got in there 20 yards on 5 carries. So altogether, 100 yards rushing. And the Eagles will tell you that that's a win because they kept the ball on the ground. The only problem is, they got they only got 1 turnover, and they didn't get as many third down stops as they want. And I'm gonna guess that they're chalking that up to going up against Tom Brady, and they think that the same formula will work a lot better against Derek Carr and Jared Goff, and we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Adam,
his personnel, right? Like I'm not saying I'm in love with Jonathan Gannon or anything. I'm not saying that.
I'm just disappointed. I'm not saying he can't do a good job eventually, and he's certainly shown some spurts of wow, okay, this guy's really good.
Yeah,
but he's also shown the Dallas game. I understand the execution was really bad, but they didn't carry their zones well. The defensive front scheme was terrible in that game. As a couple of people around the league told us it was. Right. They weren't getting it. I understand you have to guess what a team's going to do, but you got to be. We're talking about the best quarterback of all time. I understand, like people say, "Oh, nothing will work against it," but you have to try. You can't just throw your hands up. Let's hope he runs. Let's hope it
Yeah, you mentioned Jim Johnson. The last time they played when Jim was, the defensive coordinator, and they went up to Foxborough, and was it you or maybe it was Quentin Michael I was talking about on Q&A? I forget. But Jim Johnson's plan was for 4 quarters.
It was Vaughn.
Oh, maybe it was it? I feel like Q would have known.
We definitely talked about Baldy. I think Jason.
Yes, that's what it might have been. Yeah. That Jim Johnson's plan was to play a different defense every single quarter, just to confuse him.
I love that
show
guy.
Him something different.
I love that guy. I'm such a fan of Jim Johnson. Well,
he was great.
Jim Johnson, very quickly here for Eagle fans who are a little bit younger, the late defensive coordinator of the Eagles for many years under Andy Reid. He would say things at press conferences he knew might get him in trouble. Like he revealed stuff. I should have said that. Who cares? He'd laugh. He was a gruff but lovable guy. He was such a great man, special guy. Awesome, we got to get Q to tell more stories. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, he was great. He was great. But yeah, you're right. So Gannon basically came in and said, "Oh, well, hopefully we'll do what we can to make them run the ball and hopefully stop the run." And they did a bad job. And why did they do a bad job of stopping the run? Because they don't have great run stopping personnel. So you can say, well, gee, that's kind of an idiotic game plan to try to make them run when you don't have great run stopping personnel. But guess what? You're not going to have great personnel to stop Tom Brady and Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin either. So
thank you. Touchdown.
But they didn't make plays either. OJ Howard caught a lot of balls, but he got a lot of yards after contact. You got to stop that guy after he catches the ball. So that's also on the players. But I agree. There's a softness to what they do on defense that is very, very hard to watch. But I feel like personnel is the biggest issue more than scheme or defensive coordinator. And we're going to be asking that question this offseason. Can this team get him the personnel he needs when they have failed at certain positions for a long time?
100% correct. No question. When they go into the offseason, the word that, just checking in with some people around the league who've looked at Philly's tape, you cannot run when they run their 34. Typically, teams that run a 34 have sizable inside linebackers because you have 2 inside linebackers, 2 outside linebackers. But at least one of them's got to be, you would hope, somewhat of a thumper, someone who's physical, who's got decent size, like Logan Wilson of the Bengals. I was the first pick of the 3rd round 2 years ago. He's off to a good start. You need one of those guys. They don't run a 34, but I'm just giving you an example of a guy who's got size.
Yep.
So you don't have to have Luke Kuechly, for goodness sake, but you need to have someone with size. And you make a great point here because if you move it forward to next year, assuming Gannon doesn't change what he's doing in terms of, okay, I still want some 34, you've got to have that. And you know what you also have to have up front? Josh Sweat is not a good fit for a 4-eye in a 34. He's just not. He's not. You want him getting upfield, okay? You want him. He's lost in the sauce in the 34. You got to get guys who are. Now, he's long, but he's not wide. You need guys 6'5", like Will Golston, right? Who's a defensive end for number 92. It was a long time 43 end before Todd Bowles came in here. He's perfect for a 34 wide. He's 6'6", 280.
You need somebody who's someone stout, someone who's used to getting off blocks and stopping the run. Absolutely. So Golston's an end, right? And then obviously he becomes more like an interior lineman because they bring an offensive lineman down in the 3-4. But there are some 4-3 defenses that run similar cover 2, like Eberflus in Indianapolis, which is where John Gannon came from. And I believe, I can't remember the man's name, but they have a 320-pound run stuffing guy for a first and second down to do that.
You know who they had, who was fantastic. He's now with Tennessee, sort of a journeyman, but he's really good. Is Denico Autry?
Okay,
who's remember him? He's now
I know he is. Right.
Yeah, he's now with Tennessee. He used to be the Raiders and the Colts, and then the Colts. They made the big move last year for Buckner, who's incredible. He's super long. No, they run a 43, but he's super long. You could play at end or tackle 6'7", 290.
Right.
So it's all relative to the scheme that you run, but you're 100% right, and it'll be the number one issue for the Eagles defense going into 22. Is what is the front office going to do to help Gannon? You make a very fair point. We're not totally absolving him. He's done a shaky job, but you got to give him personnel that fit his scheme. Howie Roseman, the Eagles GMs, just got to accept it. For years, they've been ignoring linebacker. They invest in offensive, defensive lines, and they're right, but it does not give you the right to ignore the linebacker position, which they've done, and they've always been bad there.
They have.
Less than average.
A lot of remaking for this Eagles defense in the offseason.
Well, 17. They're obviously 17. They had the guy they got from Buffalo, who's now retired. Who's the kid the guy that the tough guy? What's the thumper? Right, Bradham, who was really good. Now, see, Jordan Hicks was the 3rd-round pick, was terrific.
Yep.
But overall, Michael Kendricks many years ago, they've largely ignored the position, and right now you cannot help Gannon out. They got to do that next year.
Michael Kendricks was the backup linebacker for that team. He got forced in, obviously, when Jordan Hicks went down. They played more dime also and brought Jenkins in because they didn't love Kendricks as a 3-down linebacker. So they played a lot of dime when they could and got Kendricks off the field and had Bradham as the lone linebacker, and then they would bring Malcolm Jenkins into the box. But Michael Kendricks, if he were this, I know he just got signed by San Francisco. If he was the 2017 version of Michael Kendricks, who was a good backup linebacker, is probably the best linebacker on this Eagles team right now. Probably.
I guess he's in his 30s now, right?
No, I'm saying if you took the 2017 version.
Oh, yeah.
Is probably their best linebacker they would have right now.
Yeah, he's 31 now. Yeah. I would. Yeah, but 27 then. Yeah, sure. 28, 27. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's see. Defensive backs. Obviously, you mentioned it. I think they want to do a little bit more on the back end, but they needed Rodney to come back first. Avonte Maddox, by the way, quietly having a really nice season in the slot.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned. We've been negligent talking about him. But you know why? As you said 6 months ago, could they just leave him in the slot? Guess what? They have, and he's doing well. Yep.
It's called putting a player in a position to succeed, and he is playing well there. Look, I think the secondary has a chance here, Adam, to kind of really help out this defense over the next 4 or 5. There's no more Patrick Mahomes. There's no more Tom Brady. There will be Dak, but that's way down the road. I mean, you've got Derek Carr coming up. Then you've got the kid, the Goff from Detroit. Then you'll have Winston. Then you'll have Broncos guy, Teddy Bridgewater. Okay.
Oh, Herbert though. They got Herbert
and Justin Herbert.
He played, it was awful against the Ravens, but he's been terrific up to that game. And Daniel Jones twice, whose line is all beat up.
Sure.
Zach Wilson, and who knows what they're going to do. Washington twice, whether Heineke or as my friend Scott Farrell calls Heineken. I love that. Heineken. Yeah, I love that. And then they don't play Dak till week 17. So you're right. It's a good point. It's fair. Yeah, they have some good. Derek Carr was doing great, and then he really was bad for 2 games, and he was good last week in that win over the Broncos. So I'm intrigued to see, because I know it's going to happen. I'm not a fan, but it's sort of blind faith. I just believe, based on what we were told, that this staff has a chance to be pretty good. Well, they need to show it. I'm choosing to believe that Gannon's going to get it right, because it's the feeling out process. As you said, they got McLeod back now. It looks very good, surprisingly, coming off the ACL this early. It's a good sign.
Yeah, well, I think it's an opportunity these next 5, 6, whatever, how many games you want to call it, until they face, Herbert or Dak. But it's an opportunity to test out the theory that you let them keep everything in front of you, and if your pass rush is good, which it should be, those quarterbacks will make a mistake. They'll throw a pick, and you'll flip the field. That's what Jonathan Gannon believes. He has, for the most part, done a good job of keeping most of the action in front. Of course, there have been a few explosive plays, but not nearly as many as in the past. The problem is they've been getting chewed up on the ground. So here's an opportunity to do a little bit better job against the run. We'll see. Starts with Josh Jacobs on Sunday, all right? And then put to test your theory that if you do that and you keep everything in front, that you're going to force mistakes by the opponent, and you're going to be able to turn the ball over and stop them on third down. Let's see it.
Well, they're not a big – we'll talk more about this on Friday. Carson's not a big turnover guy, but their line isn't great. There's an opportunity here to steal one from the Raiders, because the Raiders had an unbelievably emotional game. I'm talking to a couple people who I know with the Raiders. You couldn't even imagine what they had to go through. And they had an unreal win. Now they got to go – they go back home for a non-conference game. I just know mentally, I'm not saying the Eagles will win it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did, because this is like a humpback game. You know, it's sort of like in between another game or another game. Now, of course, they have two. This is a game. It's just like, I'm not saying they're right in the fact they're tied for first place right now. So this is an important game for them, because it's not like Major League Baseball. This game actually means something. Right. But they play the lowly Giants. They go to this is their last game for the bye. Then they play the Giants after the bye. But I'm going to be fascinated to see if Gannon and Sirianni could get themselves together for this game, because Gannon showed some good things. One thing I do want to mention before we get out of here, they started changing the coverages up once they started to get the Bucs to punt the football a little bit. Yep. They started moving up their safeties. They weren't so deep. They're tighter zones and better handoff in the zones. And that's some of that's on the players there. Obviously, it's not all Gannon. It's the coaches. It's on the players sometimes. They got to do their job, and they were doing it better.
No doubt about it. We will give you a way more comprehensive preview of this Eagles-Raiders game. First game ever for the Eagles at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas when we come out with our Friday morning podcast. What's that?
It's a spaceship. It's really cool.
It does look like a spaceship. I feel like every football stadium that's been built in the last 5 to 6 years looks like a spaceship. Exactly. But yeah, they are all very high-tech looking and pretty awesome. And I know a lot of Eagles fans will be there. We'll have it previewed. We'll have it covered soup to nuts on Friday. And that'll be it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his YouTube channel. It's called Sports Talk with Broads, and his new website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.